Hello and welcome back. We have hit a milestone in our Victoria 3 journey. We have over 36 hours played, and when I say over 36, I mean we have over 30,000 hours played. Of course, 3,000 is more than 36, last time I checked. And so what we're going to be doing is we are going to be reviewing our 2,000 hour review of our 1,000 hour review of our 100 hour review. These are kind of nested. This is going to be like the Russian dolls, but just to kind of be clear, that is 2,000 hour generalist who's about to give an intro that's probably going to sound just like this. And before we do, there's actually something really important I have to say. You, future generalist, this is the peak right here. I am the most handsome generalist there ever was or ever will be. You're just living in my shadow. I just wanted you to know that, and nothing you can say can ever bother me because I'm from the past, and I know the difference between borrow and bother. Alright, but we're going to get an intro probably from each one of these generalists, but this is 2,000 hour generalist here, 1,000 hour generalist here, and 100 baby generalist hour here. And without further ado, let's get into it. Hello and welcome back, friends. This video is going to be a bit of a meme. You see, we just hit 2,000 hours played in Victoria 3, and so what we will be doing, more than 36, is we will be reacting to our 1,000 hour video, which was a reaction to our 100 hour video where we reviewed the game. And so, obviously, we'll be talking about kind of the state of affairs in the game and how the game's evolved, throughout time, but, for the most part, we're just doing it more handsome, right? This time. In the sense that we're reacting to a reaction to a reaction, and so turtles all the way down, and let's proceed.
That's true.
Onward.
Hello and welcome back. Today you might notice something a little bit different. There's two of me. That's because we will be reacting to one of my very, very early videos, which was a critical review, critical as in generally kind of having negative things or constructive negative things to say about the game 100 hours into the game. When I had 100 hours, this video is 7 months old, so this video is roughly 7 months old as well. The game came out in October. This video is
I
8
think I hit
months
100 hours in like the first month, so this was probably in November of 2023, down that the initial 100-hour video was recorded, and then we did it, what did I say, 7 months later? So now we're like another 7 months later.
I'm expecting both, the quality of my talking about things to be considerably lower, and also the game to be, this was the game 7 months
now,
all
this still applies.
Pretty close to release when I just blasted hours and hours and hours every day.
Mike is much better.
So we're going to react to my initial kind of 100-hour review. Now that I'm sitting on 1,000 hours of Victoria 3.
Welcome back, or welcome to the first time. Today,
welcome to the first time, everyone. Notice I didn't say hello.
We are going to be doing a critical review of the Paradox's latest game, Victoria 3. And when I say...
I can't wait until it's like 5 of us and the intro part takes 30 minutes because it's 3 intros where we're explaining the exact same thing. Next time, future generalist, well, you've already gotten through all the explanations, but next generalist, maybe skip some. Yeah.
Critical review, I'm going to
Aren't you glad I didn't explain what critical review was this time? I am.
Primarily be focused on the things that are negative in my mind. But
two
that doesn't mean I don't like
is
the
unnecessary.
game. And very quickly, I'd like to just talk about the thing I think is really great about the game, which is that there's a complex interplay between laws, interest groups, and production. Where there's a robust system for a complex interplay.
It's about
between
pops.
These. And so let's talk about this a little bit.
I still generally agree with this.
I think the system's only going to get better, and in particular with 1.3, it has gotten a little bit better in the sense that you don't just pass your laws and hit it and quit it. The law passing takes place over a period of time longer than
this is
just
before
30,
local prices.
Opening years, especially if you start relatively backward.
The laws are a little basic right now. They're all right here. There's about 4
There's very few new laws, but we maybe don't care so much about that. Really, the heart of the game, though, is the way that pops interact with jobs and interest groups and this type of stuff. And we are coming up on 1.8. 1.8 has not yet been released, and really excited to see that get a little bit of a revamp with how movements work, and we'll see if that leads to a much higher level of immersion.
To 8. For many of these, that one's one that allows a lot. This one's one that doesn't allow too many. And these laws will help empower certain interest groups or disempower certain interest groups. Certain interest groups will support some laws, certain will not.
It has more to do with the economic conditions than the laws, honestly. But, you know, fresh generalists didn't understand that.
For example,
white shirt generalists didn't understand that. You know, gray shirt generalists probably understood that. Maybe not black shirt generalists, almost certainly, but us blue shirt generalists, the handsomest, definitely
right now, I'm
understands.
trying to pass private health care. If you look at the success chance...
I'm envious myself having a toothpick, and I immediately looked around for a toothpick.
No. Yeah.
Success chance is supported by the interest group's clout. And that's supported, and it's opposed by interest groups or movements that go against it. If we take a look here, clout is informed by a variety of things.
8 months,
it says political strength. Some comes from wealth. The amount that comes from wealth is contingent upon laws, right? And so you start to notice there's this complex...
A lot of it also comes from literacy, but I was not aware of that at this time.
There we go. Sure.
My understanding of the game was obviously much more basic at this time.
My understanding of the game was much more basic at that time as well. Also, my understanding of the game was much more basic at that time also. But I just keep saying complex because I don't understand the game at 100 hours. So to me, everything's complicated.
This is a complex system where the laws inform how it's determined. So, for example, I have oligarchy, which means wealth is going to determine quite...
Oligarchy, I think, was meta back then. That was before... like, legitimacy even mattered.
A lot, which...
The balance has changed a lot since then.
Super bullish on oligarchy, close to release. But then they significantly nerfed it, as well as I started to notice it was more about the legitimacy. And legitimacy is more important post 1.3.
Groups are powerful. If I had universal summit...
I think legitimacy was just a number, like, super early on when I made the 100-hour review.
Fringe. This would be different. Clout would be calculated differently, and so the laws I could pass later would be different.
Legitimacy used to have no negatives.
So one thing that's tremendously annoying about the game is the UI is very unfriendly, and it can sometimes be difficult to access.
It's gotten better.
But if we take a look, we can see
still kind of
the industrialists have a lot of clout.
It was so bad on release,
though.
A
lot of it's from wealth. And then you also get some from having commanders and this sort of stuff. And if you notice, the population of the industrialists is only 670.
So this is going, in my opinion, the pacing of this is pretty slow, and it's a lot of me, like, grasping through tooltips and this so it might be ahead a little bit.
Largely, something like that, easier for the
grasping at straws.
That's exactly correct. These are owned by different people.
I'm trying to explain the game.
These are owned by the capitalists. Let's actually look at it.
Where's the blood?
Close.
Maybe we should focus more on actually our reaction to the reaction rather than the first initial 100 hours. So we'll start skipping ahead with the 100 hours stuff.
It's lost to the sands of time.
Yeah, where's the critique?
It's owned by the capitalists, and if we
know that the ownership is important.
All of this interplays in a complex system.
Complex, because we didn't understand it very well.
Pops, and you have, look at, is different pops.
Nested tooltip back in the day when this is how you
this
get
was such
to
a
it.
vibe.
This is absolutely awful. Let's have enough.
It used to be so hard to figure out what was expensive for your pops to consume, and now the UI is so much better.
Or what they're consuming.
But now that we're blue shirt channelists, we realize that we don't care what our pops are consuming because it's not important. But in 1.8, we're hoping that famines make it significant again. But you more or less don't care as much if your pops starve.
Different pops will have different demands.
You used to have to go through 1, 2, 3 nested tooltips to get to one of like the more important, or what I thought was really important at the time, but is now I think less important. Seeing what the
once you've kind of memorized like what all like your pops consume, and you just kind of have a feel for like how much they consume at various wealth levels, then like actually having to look at it is not important.
The price of goods are that people are consuming. There wasn't this tab in the population thing before, and this was awful.
Or what they're which groups can be a tremendous amount.
I think that this is the thing to positively write home about, is that it's the interplay between the economics and the politics and the pops and stuff. Although increasingly I think that tracking all the pops, I think, is the biggest performance drain.
1.7.
And I think having very nuanced separation of pops based on
1.7 made performance so much better.
Culture and job and all this stuff. I'm not sure how much it adds to the overall game
Black
quality.
Shirt Journalist is still of this opinion where, like, I would not hate it if the game, like, merged a lot of cultures, even though you decrease a level of realism, because this is the primary thing that makes the game chug. And the game has gotten even slower since when I talked about 1.3. The game is considerably slower. In 1.3, I would comfortably play games past, like, 1900. Now, less so. Every other patch has particular depth, and it adds a lot to
performance issues, which are increasingly a concern. But
very much increasing.
The problem with Victoria 3...
Very excited. Patch 1.6 hasn't come out yet. It comes out on the 6th, and hopefully that improves performance, but we've steadily seen a decline in performance over the course of each major patch. Spoiler, 1.6 didn't, but 1.7 did. Since, like, 1.1 and 1.2.
Right now, this is the heart of the game, and this is kind of the only thing that feels like robust.
Yep, and to be honest, 7 months later, it still feels rough.
Which is...
Yep, and...
Well,
here, let's see what we're talking about, the UI.
Everything else feels rough, which is...
Yep, and to be honest, 7 months later, it still feels rough.
Military's improved a ton, but I still think there are some problems. Fundamentally, the most problematic thing, I think, now is the entire diplomatic play mechanic from declaring wars, putting in war goals, like, all of it is just... for me, that's just very consistently been... I think it's the one thing they really need to fix. Military's, like, passable now, although... Significantly, like, this is a game where the military is there to support the economics, not the economics to support the military. And if you want it the other way around, probably should just play Hoey. Man, recently, kind of towards the end of a Ukraine run, really it's just absolute struggle busing with guys being ejected from fronts. And, like, the entire point is not need to micro the wars, and it still feels fairly micro-intensive.
The things I'm about to complain about, I'm guessing, are going to be Diplo and War. And the first things that they patched in 1.2 and 1.1 was they changed the economic system and they made that better. That's not something I had a complaint about. And then they changed the internal politics, which again was something I just went over just now, or I went over 7 months ago, but we were watching just now, where I thought that the system was already good and robust, and now we're gonna rip it, maybe, probably pretty cordially.
It's kind of standard fare for a Paradox game, and I don't think this is necessarily bad or reflects bad on Paradox. That the rest of their game is pretty rough. So the first thing is...
Yeah, well, let's see.
This is something that people always complain about, the Paradox games getting shipped and being rough around the edges, and I think it might be worse with Victoria 3 in particular, but I don't think games like this ever get developed without this type of model where they are going to ship it in, like...
This guy's so smart. Like, the smartest.
It's most basic, and maybe...
Not quite as handsome, though. 1.7 really was, like, the patch where the game started to feel like... let's call it complete-ish, or I started to see... Actually, I mean, I've never been of the opinion that the game was, like, incomplete. It's just a game of a certain type, which is the, like, ongoing development type game. But in terms of, like, the public discourse, like, on Reddit and this type of stuff, where people are like, okay, the game's complete now.
They should have it be a beta and, like, have that sort of transparency. But these games, the grand strategy game genre, where you have, like, stuff that's, like, not being done anywhere else... it's like there's pops and they all have jobs and they all have, like, influence in the government, and their clout is calculated. And, like, for most games, it's like there's a population number. The population number goes up. There's there's, like, a commerce score, and there's an agriculture score, and you just do stuff to boost these scores, and it gives you food and, like, gold. And, like, it's just incredibly superficial.
100%. The stuff is, like, dynamic. And, like, we didn't even understand, like, to what extent stuff was dynamic then, where we're like, now we have a spreadsheet, and it's like, it's not that now we got a spreadsheet. Brother, we're so past the now we got a spreadsheet. We've had the spreadsheet a while. We were born in the spreadsheet, molded by it. By the time we saw the regular UI, we were already a man. One industry is better. It's that one industry is better depending on what you care about, whether you're caring about, you know, stuff like running out of pops. If you have a bunch of peasants, certain industries are better, and then if you have no peasants, other industries are better. And
they're criticizing the game for being shipped rough when it's...
The thing is also we're, at this point that we were talking here, we're at like 7 months, right?
Damn.
Now we're at like... it's in March, so math is hard. This journalist isn't as bright as gray shirt journalist or I. October, November, December, January, February, March. So it's we're like 15 months now 17 months into the game.
Just kidding, I can't do
math. To be fair, like some of the stuff still feeling kind of rough is a little bit rough, and so it's not that. What's the complaint here? It's complicated because I think that these types of games just don't get released except through this sort of iterative process where you ship like a product that is like got some problems. It's still, if Diplo plays don't get fixed by patch 1.9, I'm gonna start getting increasingly I'm gonna tear more and more of my hair out. That and the Chainsaws PM. I've been complaining about the Chainsaws PM for so much. I bet I complain about it here, but also Diplo plays fundamentally are like they're like the last bastion of like something I like really found like annoying or struggle with, and I like a mechanic that is just fundamentally unfun in its implementation. Neat idea though, but still got problems. There's some mechanics that are still really unfun and have been consistently unfun. Their prioritization has not been anywhere near where I would put it. Where like okay, initially there was like 3 things wrong, really, that were like really bad, and that was UI. They fixed the UI, and military. They kind of fixed the military. The military still got some problems. Whatever. They made it like more interesting. It was improved by a large significant amount, in my opinion. And then the last one is the diplomatic play is just sucks like really hard, and it still sucks. And it's like 17 months later, and 25 months later, it still blows. Like, to be fair, it is improved. If I recall correctly, it is a little bit more transparent than it was for Black Shirt Generalist, but it is still god awful. In terms of things that I think would make new players not want to play the game, the diplomatic play overwhelmingly was one. However,
I still think this.
In patch 1.6, which
they just
drops on March 6th, it's like next week, they are improving the transparency with understanding which guys will side against you. And this is probably the singular most frustrating thing about the diplomatic play, although there's a lot to unpack there, there's a lot wrong. It's like a Band-Aid type of fix that got implemented, basically. And so I think that the fact that they're improving this is good. We really got to get a toothpick, though, for next time. It'd be tremendous.
You know, it's got these systems that are very complex, and they're trying to do something, and then what they have built around the systems are incredibly rough, and it's,
we should talk about is UI and player experience. A lot of things that are very important.
UI was so much worse.
The information to have is hard to access. This is no longer true, but on release, for example,
it's gotten better every single time. So between like the UI was so much worse when we first recorded our 100-hour review, and it was also so much worse when we recorded our 7th month 1,000-hour review relative to now when we're recording the 2,000-hour review. Except for you in the future who are seeing the 3,000-hour review. For you guys, the future is now. That's true. But UI, I don't think has improved super dramatically since Black Shirt Generalist, except for features that have been added since Black Shirt Generalist. I do think there's been improvement in UI, and some of those features are very significant. Specifically ownership, we're going to be getting a pretty nice UI improvement, but on release, and I can't emphasize this enough, and this is, I think, even before White Shirt Generalist, you used to not be able to tell how much infrastructure was in a place, and there was no private queue, so like 80% of the game, it felt like, or not 80, but like 60% of the game was playing whack-a-mole, trying to make sure you had enough infrastructure everywhere that you would have to look at state by state, and it was just awful.
This is no longer true. At the time of the video, it was still bad.
And it's true for this save file, because this...
A little did I know.
file's not in... Oh, wait, here. Let's take a look. As we try and build a building...
I think Turkey was
my third run. So, when the game first came out, it's important to not build where you don't have infrastructure. This tooltip did not used to be here where it says
God, the tooltip didn't used to be there. It's not in the freaking sort by menu off to the left.
You used to not even have the hover tooltip.
Yeah.
It used to be god awful. And now
You
you
have
have
to
it
click.
inside, the lens menu where it tells
Like
you
the
the number of
worst.
not just peasants, but available workers, which is the important number. The peasants number is not.
Those of you who have picked up the game in the past, 8 months or whatever, you weren't here for the dark times. The dark times.
Particularly important to Steven.
Available workers was peasant plus unemployment, but okay, whatever.
Available. Well, I mean, it's important, but only insofar as it contributes to available laborers. So unemployed really needs to be in there.
Turkish market 100% access.
Yeah,
And it still doesn't have infrastructure. And I'm like, wow, it's improved so much, and it's not showing
Plus
it.
to infrastructure, plus to infrastructure, which is something you would need to know.
You used to not even be able to hover the state.
And in order to access it, you would have to exit this building lens, click on the building, go to the overview, scroll
I
down,
think
and look at the
we're beating the dead
infrastructure.
horse.
Now you
It
don't
used
have
to be
that
so
is
bad.
It was only
crazy.
1800 construction.
We've come full circle where this is reasonable in the context of, well, maybe not for the Ottomans, but this is reasonable after 1.5 slowed down the eco so much. Eco used to be so much faster, just absolute bananas. And they've there's been very few patches that actually increase your ability to eco up. And so if you ever look at really old videos, you'll see some insane GDPs. On release, I think we had a GDP that was over 30 billion or something. And now doing a world conquest, you still can't do that. To be fair, it used to double count.
To do this, so this is an example of paradox kind of media.
Eco's so much slower after
What your pops
1.5.
consume is actually really important because it determines what you might want to get, consume,
so
market share.
Actually, you know what? 1.7 might have sped up eco slightly. I'd have to try and think of all the factors, but they got rid of very significant the investment pool malice.
Yeah, I'm going to complain about this.
Their standard of raising will go up. If it's expensive, generally speaking, their standard of living will go down.
So the
unless they
tooltips
make a
triple
lot of money
nested,
doing it.
blah blah
At the
blah.
current moment,
So
of
awful.
popular-
This was so bad.
I used
but
to
also
think
it's not
information
important.
was also hover it, and it'd be like, oh, close.
We're gonna skip this a
Starts,
little.
but I feel less that way, but
Point one, they're patching this
This is an incredibly important thing.
out, but this is just
Making fun of white shirt journalists.
rough, and it makes for
Who do you think you are, black shirt journalist?
poor game-like experience. Okay. Another thing that is just absolutely terrible, and I think this is what I think is the most annoying, is the diplomacy. So,
Oh, I'm
still sucks.
complain. I'm gonna be so annoyed in this first video because I just had something really annoying. I forget every time, but I was so pissed at this point in time as white shirt journalist, and I forget every single time this comes up. We happen to be in a game. I'm just gonna pop off right here if I recall
this is the
correctly.
diplomatic lens, and there's kind of, I think, a few problems with diplomacy. One is it just feels very bare bonesy and not nuanced, and there's not a lot of depth, at least for a paradox game.
Psychosis.
But sure, that's okay.
The psychosis was in part removed when they reworked diplomatic catalyst, so now the AI doesn't randomly do just crazy stuff. And I think this was 1.7. It might have been 1.6, but I'm pretty sure it was 1.7. So black shirt journalist hadn't got a taste of the non-psychotic AI, which is something that I feel doesn't get talked about at all, but it's such a big improvement that the AI just won't go ape mode over nothing. I mean, they'll ape mode over small things, and they'll get mad at you for weird things but it requires some sort of catalyst, not just randomly deciding to attack you.
You can make your alliances.
It's not just lack of depth, it's psychosis.
Relationships where you're an overlord.
This guy is a hack. That's true.
You can declare rivals. Maybe it's not as bare bones as
Hack
some games,
journalist.
but the first gripe I have with is that the alliances seem to be asymmetric. And so what I mean is, whenever you engage in offensive war with an ally, it does not automatically.
My reference experiences with alliances is so low because I think following even this first 100 video, we've just stopped doing alliances because they're so worthless.
Call them in, and a lot of times
They're kind of okayish now.
I forgot it didn't automatically call them in before. Now it's just stupid because they always join 100% of your wars, and they don't get mad at you, and it's just this weird situation. And then you're put in a situation where you have to always declare offensive wars in order so that you don't get pulled into their wars, and it creates something that looks nothing like an alliance.
Join.
It's just they're piggybacking your forever wars.
When an ally declares, They won't join when you declare the war, and they cannot be made to join. We have a couple plays going on right now, so I can show you. When you have a diplomatic play, you can try and sway countries to your side. Often your allies will be unwilling to come to your side.
I thought I was really mad
even though they're your allies.
at this point.
On the contrary,
Me too,
when
there's something.
they declare war, it automatically calls...
Yeah, unhinged. There was like a ton of stuff that I had problems with.
I got pressed about
diplomacy that was like
something.
even worse. Not having allies.
Or 8 months
like,
later.
Just get someone really big to just like
7.
be helping me out in every war randomly, and piggyback on their army power projection. But
In particular, I had one run. I think I was playing
this
against...
is it.
oh,
This
yeah,
is where
so
I'm
you can't
at.
get out if any war goals are put on you, and I got called in against someone who was like my subject. This is awful.
Egypt. And I had a situation where the Ottomans were right here, the Russians were right here, the Prussians were my puppet, France declared war on the Ottomans. The Ottomans were in my trade union, which is a special type of diplomatic relationship.
Special,
That's kind
okay.
of a subject.
How it's subject relations with them being in your customs union and it's still just this weird relationship is still like a problem and creates problems.
Lord relationship, but kind of not. The French were
Blocks
my
have changed
allies.
that.
It automatically called me in.
Against my
I didn't want to
subject.
war with the Ottomans.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the Ottomans automatically set a CB on the French to get out of my customs union, even though they were a good Diplo with me before, which makes it so now I cannot possibly leave because
Walked
they're
into the play.
requesting to get away from me. Now, this is already terrible. I have managed to have
Terrible.
an ally call me in war against one of my subjects, which is are effectively a subject. Not only that, the Ottomans were allied to Prussia, who was one of my puppets. And so it automatically called in Prussia on my side, which canceled the puppet relationship. And there was no way to get it back. Prussia became a great power, which means that you can't puppet someone.
This is like my first time puppeting a GP, and then I get called. They get auto called in a war, like against me or on my side or whatever it was, and then I just lose them.
I was so mad about this at the time of recording the video.
One tier lower on you relationship-wise.
I've never recovered. Still hurt. Still pressed. Never forget.
There's this system where it's all like this type of thing. But this was just a very frustrating experience to like go into the details. But the current
So the Diplo was not
No need to go into the details, except we went into all the details.
that bad anymore, but it's still just like awful. Diplomatic plays at the time.
Not that bad, but still awful is like an absolute vibe.
Not an appreciation. I
3.6 Rodkin. Not bad, not terrible.
think for how bad diplomatic plays are because they're just completely unhinged and unpredictable. In 1.3, especially, revving is now super risky because GPs will randomly join one side.
They've gotten a little bit more aggressive about this. This is something to be concerned about, especially as we lose the abdication meta. A GP siding against you. I think it's partially because of reverse sways allowing them to get free subjects, but in part I think it's also has to do with lobbies to some extent. Maybe this doesn't happen as much anymore.
And I've experienced it where they contribute pretty asymmetrically sometimes, where you can rev and then like a major power joins on one side, a GP on the other, and you're just like, okay, well, I'm just going to join the GP side so my run's not bricked, and then they contribute no troops and the major power contributes everything, and you just get wrecked.
I think it shouldn't break runs. Losing a rev.
And your run's just
I don't
over.
know the solution.
And it's like
I was trying to move this over.
they join a lot, on your revs, and maybe that's okay. But I don't have a problem with them joining on the revs necessarily, like as a mechanic. But they will join on your revs even if they have absolutely super good relations with you, and it's just the level of relations and like attitude just does not.
Yeah,
seem to
this
compute
isn't
at
as
all,
much a thing
in
anymore.
regards to how the AI like.
It's a little bit more
plays
thing now.
stuff.
It's gotten much
diplomacy
better.
system is just like wacko, and the only thing that it's good
Wacko's
for
right.
is to try and pull people into your customs.
He ain't wrong.
So if we take a
Better
look,
now.
Your marketing.
100 hours in.
Things
100 hours in.
consume-
I think I like the customs union. I think they're cool.
We like the custom
union.
union.
Look at that.
Loud car.
Most of South America's
loud. Customs unions are gone now. They've been replaced by blocks, which sometimes have markets, sometimes don't.
Turkish market, a whole bunch of
I was so proud.
countries that are not part of it.
I think this is my third run.
And this is kind of where Diplo is useful for pulling people into your market.
I think I did USA, Egypt, and Tunis twice before this.
Yeah,
So
we don't talk about the Tunis
it's
runs.
Without
don't talk
using
it.
war. And, okay,
The timeline has failed. We could have had it all. We should have had it all. Rome must fall.
so this is like Diplo. There's weird alliances. I think, despite it,
Now
we
you
don't-
just call them in on everything. You just always declare wars, and it just doesn't feel like diplomacy. It just feels like this weird.
Now they'll abandon
extra
you, so
hand
this
you
is
have.
improved.
That doesn't really do that
Yeah.
much, but it helps a lot for army power projection
But
specifically.
now they never
so
help
it makes
you.
people very likely to back
Now they never help you, and then it breaks your alliance, and it's frustrating.
down more so than
It works kind of okayish now.
your ally actually offering a lot of help.
not like just absolutely
We're-
cannot assess.
We're trying to focus more on 1,000 hour
It
generalists.
is about joining stuff that they have a reasonable chance of doing. Although people will cut down to size you even if they have no chance. I think the idea is they're hoping to get more people, but they will also just psychotically join versus you.
like,
Psychosis.
even the slightest
It's still
bit, sometimes
present.
They just make it play.
There.
I can't.
This is still my number one complaint about the game. 7 months later.
I know what Black Shirt Generalist is going to say. It's still my number one complaint 14 months later. And you know what Blue Shirt Generalist has to say? It's still my number one complaint 5 months total later.
Is that the diplomatic play system sucks.
Still sucks.
And it's very opaque, and there's no player agency, and you just
It's getting less opaque next week. Slightly. Yes. More transparent,
probably
probably.
get shellacked. And, usually it means you like, if you're playing Iron Man or whatever, you just have to back down and eat the 10% thing, the paying the 10% of your income. It makes no sense.
That's like
that,
an unfun thing.
These GPs care that you're dominioning someone in Ethiopia. Like, they don't.
They've since made it so that they don't care very much if you're going against unrecognized power specifically, and if you're playing on Iron Man, this is probably...
They shouldn't care.
The transparency part's
and
the
they're
important
just
part,
gonna
I
fight
think.
you over it. It's just insane. But sometimes, in the Zhili or the Fractured China run that we did, they wanted our capital
was
as
a
the
run.
primary war goal. So you can't
That
just
was a
back
run.
down and give up your capital where you have over half of your manufacturing. It just that doesn't play. And
Pretty
it's
sure
just
it was
literally
pressed.
flipping your point of view.
Here's me being very annoyed about that. That was very frustrating.
Who might join, who might not.
What it says in terms of predictability who might join, and that is entirely black and white, where it says someone's either neutral or someone's likely to join. There's no numbers involved, and there's no chance to sway people out. They immediately
They're putting
after
this in
joining
next
against
week.
you, their attitude towards you changes and just becomes extremely hostile, so that doing anything, you can't just capitulate to one person's war goals in order to get them out.
To be fair, they've improved these specific complaints so much in 1.7. I mean, I still hate the Diplo play. I still think it sucks on a lot of fronts, but it's sucking on fronts that we haven't mentioned here at all, which is the decay below zero mechanic is nuts. You can't join plays after they've already started. You can't renegotiate war goals, and the opening of a diplomatic play doesn't feel like any sort of diplomatic jockeying, which is the entire idea of the play itself. Now these are our primary complaints, but they have done quite a lot to address the psychosis specifically, which, to be fair, was our number one complaint about the Diplo plays. They still suck, but I really hate that you still can't do this. I think that you should be able to negotiate someone out of the play much easier.
And you still
can.
to resolve them getting in there. UK wants to open my market or something. I can't just let them open my market and just give it up and then proceed with my war as I want it.
Or who's going to join the war on one side. And so you get a lot of situations where you start a war that you don't really think the British are going to come in on the enemy side, and then they come...
My pie had not been fingered very much at this point.
We've gone through a lot of pie fingering at this point.
I was a young lad
I was a young lad.
sent to here.
Those were the days. My innocence has been ruined.
Side, and then you're just hosed, and there's not really anything you can do except for back down, which gives them a war goal on you, and sometimes it's a really nasty war goal, and it's led to just kind of an unfun.
Sometimes it's take the capital,
where you don't know.
Still my number one complaint about this game. Actually, then my number one complaint I think seemed to be the UI, but this is
the fact that I'm a little bit of a broken clock and like 8 months later, like still like the number one things I'm complaining about are still the number one things is like a bit of a bummer. It's just we're like 25 months in at this point, and or yeah, 25 months in of the game's development, and still I think the system that is kind of just like yeah, I mean I'm saying it, you're hearing me say it. It turns out that generalists tends to agree with generalists and have the same ideas as generalists, but the fact that they're the same, right, and not evolving, I mean, broad strokes, there have been definite improvements along kind of the most frustrating lines, but we would rather them like fix the diplomatic play than like do anything else, except for fix the chainsaws PM. God, that PM's awful. The PM like doesn't even save you money on labor. It actually increases labor prices because the wage multiplier, the total wage multiplier, relative to steam donkeys, you save like 100 workers, but the total wage multiplier goes up. Like it uses a bunch of oil. The efficiency just like disgustingly goes down. It's just so out of line with every other PM in the game.
It's terrible.
Before you declare a war, you don't really have a good idea of what's going to happen. Now,
Nope.
The diplomatic plays go through this
It's a
cycle
burst.
where there's opening moves,
Yeah, we know how
more
diplo plays work.
transparent. Yeah, I just wish it was
Develop
more transparent what would happen. In terms of
Or if you had like agency,
diplomacy.
or you could
Okay,
develop
warfare.
an ability
Yeah.
to like
all
go
the
through
warfare
people.
work.
We made that
This
point.
guy, for example, he's in automated war. If you notice, like you can only set 3 things, and it's really I don't really have a problem with this, except for sometimes the AI
The
just
system's
like
much better.
leave a front completely open, and then like 2 units.
They
will
still,
just, like,
the AI still does this.
behind your
Basically.
armor
We've had
and
many
completely
spaghetti
cut off the
wars,
supply line.
but the spaghetti is nowhere near as bad as it was back in either of these 3 generalist times.
This still happened 7 months later.
7 months later, you say? I mean, it happens less now than it does where the AI will leave abandon your own fronts, your automatic reshuffling of fronts or the AI themselves, but it still happens. Now it's more centered around navally invading in strategic regions. They don't have any defense because they only defend the home region, and even then they don't do a very good job about it. They've improved quite a bit in this regard. This is you still can abuse them with landings and multiple landings and abusing specific strategic regions, so it's not like fixed, but it's considerably better. Apparently being addressed though in 1.6.
Still a problem,
in
which
like
is actually why you need to micromanage wars that are important, where getting one full
Still
type
need to micro
behind will like break, it'll ruin your.
I honestly think we micro wars harder than we micro eco, which is like not where we want to be, kind of in terms of gameplay.
Your ability to enforce.
But now it takes so freaking long to like do a landing. If you have a war goal such that you could be enforced below 0, like it could just like brick your entire war, and so it's like it's kind of pretty obnoxious with the how 0
long
long
it takes
enforcement
landings
is
to
a
get in.
problem. Also, the like decaying below 0 mechanic is just like it feels so stupid. It feels like such a poor simulation, and not even not even just like a poor simulation where like either you can be ticked below 0 war score or not, or war support or not, and then like it leads to this. It from a gameplay perspective, it's not enjoyable either because it allows you to like game things and abuse the AI because your war will never end, and then simultaneously the other way around, where like sometimes the AI can enforce on you when they're just getting absolutely crushed because they can decay you below 0 because they don't have a war goal or whatever.
Force on the war, and so
Yeah.
it's like it's not
Because no one's on the front,
Black Shirt Generalist is stressed out right now.
and this just is an unfun experience, which actually leads you to have to weirdly micromanage the fronts when the. I think warfare is a little bit broken.
how naval
Doing
combat
naval
works.
invasions is completely broken.
Yeah.
You like click naval invasion, and then you try and land.
I'm about to say how I didn't understand how naval invasions work.
And
I couldn't land back then.
In the latest patch, it's like not as bad as it used to be.
I
But
think
it used to be just basically impossible to pull off a naval invasion.
This is before we had the triple landing, which is no longer present. I'm about to talk about the triple landing.
Homeboy didn't know about the triple
And you get messages. Again, the thing that.
So the triple landing, which is now a bit of history, is it used to be that you could land multiple landings on a single state, and if you put in one landing, the first landing would catch their navy, the second landing would catch their army, and by catch I mean they would completely occupy both the navy and the army, and then the third landing just gets in 100% free. And so it used to be 3 boats in a dream, and you used to just be able to land anything at any point in time with 3 battalions, and then I think there was a way to teleport the battalions, or you could just assign instantly to the front. And you like, I forget exactly how it worked, but it used to be just like, just complete nonsense, and you just needed 3 boats, and you just automatically got in every single naval landing you wanted.
Complaining about most with this game is opacity. Just like
the triple landing, you just get it for free.
It doesn't, like, or it does now, but like at the time there was nothing like in a tooltip anywhere that told you what insufficient support meant. It was just completely.
I couldn't land. We were trying to land like a 200 stack with a 10 stack navy, and then we have a huge malice, and it was completely opaque that we had this malice.
So you don't know if it's convoys, or you need more boats, or what exactly it is. It's just, you need more boats. No explanation
Relative to the landing teams.
And in the game, there's like as much going on, what's going on or what's happening. In terms of being very suited, or let's put it like this: the first 50 years of the game feel pretty nice. And the last 50 years...
I can't even get to the last 50 now.
You don't say, my guy. Yeah, I still can't get to the last 50. But we're getting into, like, the last, or the first 80 now. 1.7. Performance has improved. Performance has just, like, gotten worse every single patch.
Performance has tanked so much since 1.3.
You start to feel wildly unbalanced. You can get to the point where you have so much construction capacity that you're just like infinite building. And
I'm talking about infinite.
Look at this guy. He's got like 1K something, 1.8K construction.
I'm building at 1.8K. 30K.
That just way outstrips.
We were pushing like for 100K construction in our UK run. And now population, there's way less pops as well as you enter late game, which makes like having these huge GDPs and these huge construction rates much harder.
In your buildings, which is like,
I did play in Arabia.
This is maybe something you should have
several times now, and they are really resource light.
Something like this.
Now it's really bad with the mappy.
7 months ago, Peter or Generalist did not know what's up. You never wind down construction.
Never ever.
Like when you have a bunch of construction, it actually facilitates a whole bunch of consumption. Like this construction building is using all.
Look at us. Welcome to Economic
So
Game.
if I turn it down, it's going to turn down.
For what?
Consumption of all my goods, which is actually a dynamic,
for,
economic process that's interesting, and it should perhaps be in there.
Not the
but
police.
It doesn't quite feel balanced. It feels like don't feel very well balanced.
Nope.
Like late game,
Construction's
it just feels
so
like
good.
you suck all the pops out from everyone else in the world.
They've nerfed
migration since this was significantly nerfed in terms of mass migrations. But now the complaint is about regarding multiculturalism, right? Like, and it's just
we're getting the racism update soon. Migration is now it's just like it feels like you never run out of pops. So it's probably a little overtuned, but maybe it being overtuned is like working as designed, and that's like okay, decent simulation. As far as simulation goes, the level of pop growth is not a good simulation though, because you should have way more pop growth.
It's all or nothing.
They keep making it harder to get
intra-market migration, and the metagame is just like all around just getting multiculturalism, because it just flips the switch and allows migration.
Still true. Yeah.
It's just not
changing next patch.
They used to get
fire and then fire and then higher and then fire.
This was a huge problem, and they did fix. They used to get so many radicals by hiring and firing cycles. That was especially acute in the arms industries, and now they have fixed this.
And it causes a lot of radicals. These are just some complaints about the economics. Overall, the economic system is actually tremendously robust and interesting.
This was before 1.2, which was an economic
I'll also
update.
go through each one of these.
Oh yeah, that's right. That was before the malice.
As far as user UI and player experience, I've complained a lot. A lot of the systems are opaque. They're hard to get.
They've gotten better, except for the Diplo play.
Diplo play still sucks.
And
it still sucks really hard.
I think I've enjoyed
all the,
but I don't think that my experience is necessarily reflective.
all the countries feel basically exactly the same.
Still feel the same, and they still feel the same. I actually made a video kind of complaining about this, that specialization basically doesn't exist. And Mappy, like, really kills specialization. I don't think, I think Black Shirt Generalists understood this, but, like, not to, like, the same degree. Like, trade needs to get better, and, companies need to give some kind of special advantage, or countries need to be able to get some sort of special advantage. But, like, as it stands now, there's this mod called Realms of Exeter, and this gives, like, fantasy bonuses and bonuses to different races, and that is at least kind of changing things up. But, like, right now, like, most runs just look so similar to each other. And I'm hoping that India specifically is going to be nice and neat and feel a little bit different. But, like, meta's kind of just, like, meta, and you just keep doing the same thing. And it's definitely... Look, 1K hour Generalist was going hard. 100 hour Generalist, he was vibing. Black Shirt Generalist... Okay. I'm tired of going for South Africa every single run, and, like, every single, like... Sometimes you just gotta set your own constraints, and that's, like, kind of what we do more now. I'm not really trying to push meta. At least some people, like, almost all of my runs could just be dramatically improved upon. And we're not, like, pushing as hard as, like, possible, but, like, everything kind of looking the self-same-ish in terms of runs, I think kind of hurts the replayability of the game, and I wish they did more to add, like, replayability, like, because what's good for one country is basically just good for all of them.
In terms of replayability, this is probably the biggest complaint. You, like, do the exact same thing with every country and every
we're going for Borneo, South Africa
and there's no
again?
Specialization, really.
You don't say.
What I think happens is
Even my review of my review of my review of my review is the same meta as the review of the review of the review.
Insane. Once you start blobbing out and you get big. Low, because the system feels really front-loaded into the
About 1.3
years where you are, you know, trying to...
One thing I like about 1.3 is it does stretch out the period in time in which you're, like, dealing with internal politics quite a bit.
That's true.
And I know a lot of people kind of don't like that, or, like, they're whinging about law.
It used to feel like you would get the laws all the laws you want in place in, like, the first 20 years.
Law passes take forever now. Or they're really short if you have an agitator. But I do think it's interesting, and it makes the game more dynamic.
The agitator
longer
down a bit.
Balance.
I agree with that, though.
Laws, interest 4 on the laws you
agitators used to just, like, give you 100% pass chance, like, basically.
want. It's a matter of playing, like, building simulator where you're just building more and more buildings. And so I think that the late game experience might not be that good. Also, the late game gets super choppy, like more than a normal Paradox game.
I wish it was this choppy.
Late game,
I wish it was 1.3 choppy.
Without the auto queue, like, building the railroads was actually a lot more annoying. Like, building them all by hand everywhere.
That was awful. You used to just, like, you used to have to try monitor construction and just, like, by hand, been bugged out, but...
I know they're working on it for the first patch, but these are just some complaints about the early patch.
Yeah, the computer chair is dead.
Let's quickly go.
Our current computer chair is, like, the, like, lean back portion is, like, doesn't really work, so it's really a computer stool.
Through the tabs, I think I've talked
this
about
computer chair is dying now, though.
Or the laws.
It's the
we'll
same
just go
one.
through it again really quick.
It turns out being over 300 pounds does a number on your computer chair.
Initially, is you have to put the leader of the...
This is also when legitimacy didn't give you any bonuses whatsoever, and so it, like, really didn't matter once you had all your laws in place.
You just get your laws in place and then cruise on whatever legitimacy you wanted.
What's law enforcement look like? Okay, tax your pops more or less, but if you tax your pops more, they actually consume less. So that drives down demand for good.
God, we felt so clever here.
in your market.
Silly journalists didn't understand. You just you drive down the consumption of all your pops, but you drive up the consumption of construction materials. You just crank construction. Look at this guy with a positive balance. This guy's absolutely. Look at this moron. Totally right about the other guy.
Pops you have are regressive, so when you up the bird.
Yeah, despite them being regressive at the start, I still think the beginning is actually when you want to tax the most or have the highest tax rate.
It increases the pain for the poor more. You can also have taxes on consumption, and you notice there's tons of other taxes here through various taxes. And consumption groups
we're going to kind of skip through some of this.
They've changed this.
An extra little gamey, it seems exploitable, but whatever. Okay. Building is where it's at.
It used to be way better than paying more guys more.
And,
building is where it's at, though. This guy understands.
You use
I just want to emphasize, and I know we talked about this at the start of the video, but future generalist, I am way more handsome than you.
Technology to get different production methods. Take a look here.
This generalist is struggling to explain some stuff.
Like in this PM,
100-hour generalist didn't understand. We have 30 times the hours.
The later ones use machinists and engineers, which belong to
the building, which interacts specifically with the pops.
Yep.
And then you have it to be as
realizing that 100 hours in,
cheap as possible. A lot of times you want to.
Well, look at me realizing that 100 hours in,
intentionally make goods cheap, and a lot of times when
casually throwing shade, gray shirt generalist didn't even know about price equilibriums yet. Come on. He's throwing the shade.
You're trying to figure out what you should build.
Yeah, this is like what everyone thought really early on. You're trying to make everything cheap, but that just kills your... that's how it is with a lot of other games. You want to make goods cheap. That's not the way with Victoria 3. Because if every good is cheap... Look at black shirt generalist thinking he's so clever. This depresses your economy. You would rather all your goods be plus 20% price than minus 20% price, for example. Although what you really want is you really want price equilibriums. That was beyond gray shirt generalist, though. And certainly white shirt generalist.
What's expensive? What's expensive? You're trying to figure out what you should build. You just go into the market tab.
No. That's not what you do. Don't stop. It's more complicated.
You don't build like that anymore.
You build more wood.
Expensive. So I'll give an example. One example is chemical plants. Sometimes you want them to be expensive because chemical plants.
Fertilizer. Yeah. Used to hard export fertilizer.
You always want fertilizer to be expensive.
First of all, fertilizer is expensive. You can build more chemicals.
Everybody knows fertilizer you want expensive, except now there's 2 buildings instead of 1. Yeah, you don't just build the most expensive good. That's not what you do. I thought it was... Yeah, I'm going to talk about disempowering the landowners here.
This allows you to drive down the price of explosives, and maybe you want...
Just in terms of my content here, I am super, super tangential and really not focusing on the review part. I'm just like, I'm spending way too long on the examples.
You don't say. Explosives to be low because you as the government have to pay for explosives, whereas you don't have to pay for fertilizer.
This is like kind of a factor, but it's really not. You want it so that the fertilizer, the chem plants can be more profitable, and so that you can have like
and also when the fertilizer is expensive, this made the grain places less profitable, which disempowered the landowners.
Supply of explosives, and it partially
now the building's bifurcated.
The government's paying, but a bigger part of it, I think,
this isn't like a thing anymore because the
ownership or more.
Man, I really want to toothpick. The building's split, so this doesn't matter.
Because your chemical plant
is this me complaining?
Want a toothpick right now? Because
we do want a toothpick right now.
Chemical plants can be more profitable. That gives fertilizer, but that's what I've been doing.
I'm not sure it was correct either.
In my instance, I think I'm paying for it. Yeah, for construction goods. Okay, so that's thing one.
Yeah, which you also pay for the government, which you kind of care about, but like not a lot.
Landowners use fertilizer to make crops. If fertilizer is expensive, then these PMs or production methods, with the landowners, these PMs or production methods will be less profitable in order to get infrastructure.
This is true.
They'll have
but we just trying to skip the fertilizer already.
The railroads in order to get infrastructure.
This is true.
So if the price of transportation is high, which is this good here, then the railroads will be more.
My kingdom for transportation not being a local good anymore, man.
It's annoying.
I hate local goods. They're really annoying. They add to realism, but I think the trade-off with like gameplay ability is just not worth it. Specifically, it's like really bad with electricity, but kind of bad with railroads.
I think this is still the game. Places will not, if as long as they're profitable, they won't decrease wages, even if you could.
Now they still won't, but they won't like balloon up in the first place anymore. This used to be like a very significant thing, understanding how wages work, and we haven't paid close attention to wages in a long time. But that was during gray shirt journalist time, when you could have a government wage like death spiral.
It lasts for the wage. I think this is still in the game, but it's like in specifically on the railroads, it can lead to situations where you are paying, it doesn't decrease your subsidies when you make transportation more expensive, which it ought to. And it does, but only if the buildings are not profitable. If they're all profitable, it doesn't decrease the subsidy.
I think the mechanic still works the same.
Cause the wages to go down, and if the wages went down, then the net balance would be better, which would require less of a subsidy.
Wages don't really balloon up anymore.
Also, sometimes if you're exporting a lot of good, you may want the price high, because if you're producing a lot of extra of it for export, then you want it to be high.
Yeah, this video is going to be long.
It's just people
the profitability here.
Trades,
yeah, let's skip ahead.
In particular now, I think it's actually reasonable to export wood and iron early on, but then you transition to importing it.
This is not correct. Actually, right now, it's actually like the reverse. Which is, when iron gets really expensive because you built a bunch of construction sectors, it's okay to import it, but eventually you want to switch to export because you want to be disproportionately in these industries. The thing is, with gray shirt generalists, though, that was a time when you could eco so hard that you would just build up all your iron mines and all your wood mines, like, completely all the way. And if you ever hit that point, then you start importing. This is 100% the case, but gray shirt generalists didn't understand. Look at black shirt generalists being like, this is how you do it, but it's actually not how you do it. And it's not how you did it during black shirt generalist time. Shame on you, black shirt generalists. Gray shirt generalist was right because the metagame was different back then, but black shirt generalists understand why this was. Is because on a per construction basis, which is what we were all about when we were in our gray shirt days, wood and iron are really, really, really strong, but on a per pop basis, like when you run out of labor, tools and other stuff starts to become a lot better. And so this is kind of correct, but now you don't run out of pops anymore, at least until really late in the game, because migration's a lot stronger. But that to some degree is okay. Extremely early on, though, importing iron's good. It kind of flips where then importing it can be okay, in particular when the prices get really inflated. Not if the prices are really low still. But it's like, it's interesting how this changes. Mines are kind of always good, but like with the wood in particular, wood is much less pop efficient. Black shirt generalist is okay with this analysis than it is construction efficient, and so the gray shirt generalist didn't understand why. He only understood. Black shirt generalist doesn't know how to talk. He only understood the feel about how exporting the resources early felt good, and that it didn't feel good later.
Military tab, very, very simplistic.
Yeah.
When you go look for your military,
or you're gonna whinge about the military.
Attack, implement the attack, and then go smack someone around for something.
Yeah.
You can't really do that.
Now it's like, this is before you had like artillery and infantry battalions, and you could organize how much of each was in the thing. This was just, your military just had battalions, and you had two PMs you could use. You could use the primary PM and the secondary weapon PM, and that was it. There was no building of different types of units. Like, a lot more clicking. And I'm not sure it adds more depth. Because now you have, you can make your different units. I was super bullish on this when 1.5 came out. To be fair, you can still kind of do stuff a little bit differently here, but the metagames really seem to evolve into particular, like, being, or in my opinion, you have one huge pushing army, or you have big pushing stacks, can't borrow on offense, so this is why it needs to be big, and then lots of little defensive stacks. You can borrow on offense now, but I still think that Black Shirt Generals might have been onto something, that giving you the ability to organize what ratios you can have in the military is really not that impactful because for the most part you only want a couple different types of ratios, and it doesn't feel like you're making decisions very often. And then the pushing stacks are always 50-50 arty infantry. The defensive stacks are always pure infantry. And then the landing stacks where you're expecting to land unopposed, which might kind of fall by the wayside quite a bit, are at least 30% cavalry for rapid advance. You can, if you're completely unopposed, you just want 100% cav. And then if you are expecting to fight a little bit, you want 50-50 cav and infantry.
Another thing I wanted to complain...
Or I guess you want 50-20-30 is actually a little bit better because it depends whether you want the combat power or the pushing.
I actually really like that you can't exploit timing windows as much, which is what I was talking about there. But I think that you can leave a barracks on like level 1 and then have it on the good PM and then rapidly build up the barracks. Of course, this has been nerfed in 1.3.5.
This isn't really a thing
Recruitment
anymore.
is way slower now.
You could still...
mechanic in Victoria should be like something like that for Victoria 3.
Is that when you other war goals and avoid the war, and then you have a 5-year truce that you can't break under any circumstances?
This used to be before you could add primary war goals. It was so annoying.
It was annoying.
It just feels weird, and it feels like it'd be impossible.
You used to only have one primary war goal.
To go for world conquest, and it does not seem to simulate anything very...
Right now in this patch, anyone can do a world conquest, basically, because of how you can abuse breaking up India and then chomping it up for like 5 or 6 infantry.
Well, because like maybe you want to invade an entire country, you just can't do that in this game.
Like, now the Crux is releasing. We also didn't know how to manipulate prestige then.
So move a tech tree in such a way that it's really easy to put laws in.
They talked about modding.
And I think they will be doing quite a lot of that, and I'm excited for that. I think that'll add a lot of depth.
Zero no text have been added. Yeah. I still think... I can't think of a single tech that's been added to the game. No, wait. There's been techs added in 1.5 that relate to Mappy, basically, and the company techs. They added the company techs, basically. Yeah. That's kind of it.
Yeah.
Zero techs.
The Zeppelin techs still suck.
Zeppelin tech's good now. It's had to come up. Zero to hero, rags to riches. That's right. Had to glow up. Zeppelins is like super OP now.
Production methods for
multilateral allowances is the come up from Blackshirt Generalist time.
Either bonuses or production methods for military buildings in society is different laws you can pass and stuff like ability to colonize and
Thank you, Gray Shirt Generalist, for skipping ahead.
This tab is sessions.
All right, we're gonna skip some more too.
It's actually pretty diverse as far as countries go, but
wait, what am I complaining about?
Turkish, so shocker.
It's actually pretty diverse as far as countries
One
go.
of the more diverse ones.
I actually think it's super cool how obsessions and taboos will influence stuff, and they can be good or bad, and how it makes assimilation bad as a mechanic. Because you don't want to assimilate, except for performance reasons. You want to assimilate for
This is changing now, so this is good. You want to assimilate. You do not give a shit about, obsessions being mildly good.
With the same thing that's bad for the
terrible. Everything's about performance. This guy doesn't understand what's in. With 1.8, we're gonna get a little bit more nuanced discrimination. That's hopefully gonna be interesting and neat to play around with.
Consuming it, and then they have taboos.
No, that's not what you're trying to do. You're just trying to cry as little as possible. They will overconsume.
This is really just the correct not just in Victoria 3, but life. You're just trying to cry less.
Furniture, the price of it will always be high relative to regular furniture, which will prevent building of more than buildings because the buildings won't be profitable enough, and they will be over-consuming a good that's more expensive, which lowers their SOL relative to if they didn't have the obsession.
We've since developed our opinion on obsessions, and it's more like you would actually want your pops to over-consume a particular good if this good is more efficient. So like an opium obsession is actually really good because opium is incredibly insufficient PM, and so you would prefer to have an opium obsession.
I think that more will
small arms PM would be really nice.
But right now, cultures do not seem to be...
They still don't, and this... Cultures are also like what is expensive in terms of game performance, which is like really obnoxious. The only thing it cares about is acceptance and migration and like this type of thing. And like this is what we're paying for. Just to be clear, is the bifurcation of cultures. If there was one singular culture in the game, well, that's perhaps an oversimplification, but if we made the cultures like Asian, European, African, or whatever, then the performance would be way better.
Fashion in particular with automobiles can be good, as well as...
Automobiles PM sucks. Gray shirt generalist is an idiot. Automobiles sucks now.
Porcelain, maybe?
Let's say. The population tab kind of gives you a rough idea of what's going on with pops. It does not feel that user-friendly in terms of looking through.
Nope, we get the census one next week in patch 1.6. Census is nice.
Still doesn't feel...
I can go through what's going on with that.
Never go through this stuff.
Like all this stuff, political movements. And
I never go through this stuff. And my understanding is this stuff is specifically what is the biggest performance, hang-up. And so I wonder if they should just, massively overhaul the pop system to make it a little bit simpler. Still some level of depth,
exactly
but
the
not,
point.
as damaging to performance, because all the calculations are for all the different stuff, because we need to calculate for the Albanian Sunni clerks in each state. So the Albanian Sunni clerks in let's call it in Lower Egypt. We need to account for them in every other place. We need to account for the Greek Sunni clerks, the Greek Orthodox clerks, just every single, different variation of everything. And it's and it's not just calculation.
This sort of thing might be hard to access. This just feels buried and opaque and hard to find. Not that you necessarily need to access a lot anyways.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's easier to find.
I don't know why I find
a lot of this
funny.
stuff matters, especially...
Wait, what did we find funny?
These notably turn into pie charts if you want them to. And,
I don't know why I find
a lot of this
funny.
stuff matters.
We're going to kind of skip through
That
this.
is just...
It's not that great. It does not feel anything like Mission Tree or even remotely close.
Nope.
To be fair, it doesn't have to be. But.
Here as a placeholder for...
No, it seems like they don't want to give too many differences between nations, because they don't want it to be implying or suggesting differences between cultures or some sort of racial superiority or something like this.
Ugh.
But Hoey has unique mission trees.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I do know. Black Shirt Generals didn't know. I really wish that they added more in the ways of any type of differentiating characteristic between countries, such that it improved replayability and made you actually have to think about what you were doing relative to that country, and have interesting decision points, rather than every country And to be fair, part of this is a product of us having 3,000 hours of the game, and as you understand the game better, you don't have to think as much, and so maybe I'm just complaining about silly stuff, but a lot of the stuff really does feel hyper the same. It's only the opening 20 years that really feels different from country to country, but outside of that, and even within that parameter, it's still replayability, man. They really want to go for a sandboxy thing with Vic.
Yeah. But it seems really just superficial.
That's one of the reasons I like the mod where you're having unique bonuses for countries, and it's gonna make it so that you decide to lean into different things in terms of having an advantage. French just gets OP.
Still feels superficial.
Again,
French gets OP interest groups because they have a DLC.
currently seems pretty...
I actually don't think get out your pitchforks and tinfoil hats. The French industrialists aren't as OP as I thought they were, or after kind of limit testing the GPs to try and see who was best. I was surprised at how bad France felt relative to how good I thought they were going to feel, and a big part is I think that perhaps the industrialist bonus, even though I think it's really, really good, the base industrialist bonus that it's replacing is also really good. So if you're replacing a really good bonus with a really, really good bonus, that's less of a benefit than replacing a bad bonus with a good bonus, for example, even if the bonus is not quite as good.
Outliner, you can control what's off to the side.
Because it's about the difference.
Speaking of UI being annoying, you get messaging.
Outliner is getting better. Yeah.
That scroll up, and if you're scrolling through...
Change where the messages appear.
It's just very annoying for the user.
Now you can control what messages appear.
You can take a look
this
at
is
what's going on.
UI's improved from messaging.
Our country is #1 in this run. I'm going to be coming back to this run a little bit. we've already played through it. It's been a while since we played this one. But
okay, so this I must be on my 6th or 7th run then.
Yeah, so
yeah, if I'm coming
that's
back
kind
to
of just
Turkey.
going through like a lot of the stuff. Revolution, yikes! Just going through a lot of like the basic stuff in the game. Overall, my assessment is that the game is not very well polished, and
still not.
Still not.
7 months later.
A lot of the
15 months later. 25, it's kind of well polished. Still hate the Diplo plays though.
Is not necessarily in the
it's
way
better,
that
though.
the country interacts with itself, but it's just
That's such a weird clause.
sort of interaction with countries just feels bad, both from the diplomacy and the military. It just like does not feel good at all. And then secondly,
Yeah, Diplo is like still a hot mess. I mean, they're supposedly fixing it, but like it's going to be a year and a half until they have the.
It's like a year and a half now, except
so
the DLC was slotted for now. It's been pushed back. Like earliest, I would say was probably like mid-May would be the earliest. Would be my guess. I don't have any insider information on that.
I mean,
I forget when it dropped.
Trying to be simultaneously critical of this game while liking it is such a weird feel because, like,
Yeah.
it's like gonna be a year and a half.
Remember, the objective is to minimize crying.
Up until they make diplomacy like feel
This is the
any
meta.
sort of reasonable. But I also like the game, so like I don't even know.
there's a lack of polish
Crying, screaming, and throwing up.
towards the later years of the game, where stuff starts to break down and the experience starts to not feel as good, and it just kind
I'm shocked we haven't
Now,
hit an
performance
ad.
is worse, but the law passing dynamic is there for a little while longer. Overall, I'm happy with the agitators, but I can't play past 1900 and 1.3.
starts to
They
feel
haven't
like the
added
same type of
agitators, and
experience.
we really like
This
hate
is
playing the
kind of
1900
my
now.
impression.
The past 900 hours has not changed that impression very much.
What was the
And
impression?
starts to feel like the same type of experience.
Oh yeah, everything feels the
or
same.
this is kind
Definitely.
of my-
Jesus. Everything feeling the same for the past 2,900 hours, man. But I mean, we talked about this already, so
Impression.
The past 900 hours has not changed that impression very much.
I've invaded South Africa like at least 50 times now.
Added to later parts of the
Boy, have I got news for you.
game. But
Still not there.
interplay-
What needs to happen is it needs to feel like
Yeah.
you're slowly like building up some sort of tension towards a world war. That would be
That would be
super cool.
sweet.
Where like things are
That would
slowly
be cool.
progressing towards that, and like there's this sense of like impending doom and like preparation. and, like, exploiting people while it's the good times.
Pop
at
off,
least for us,
sis.
not for the exploit this type of thing.
Gatekeep, girl boss.
between the economics and the
Gaslight.
political system.
It's not gaslight. It's gatekeep, girl boss, gunfight. Don't let anyone ever tell you any different.
Is a very interesting and robust system
God,
that
I've said
More
robust too
stuff
many
in
times. I've also said complex too many times.
and then it'll be really, really good. So I actually think that this game will be crazy good and interesting.
They have added a couple more laws.
One day they'll fix diplomatic plays.
But that right now I mean, it's very interesting right now, but it's like medium, and if you have a low tolerance for extremely frustrating situations, not being able to access the information you want, and like the diplomacy just being screwed, then maybe don't play this game. The economics is also if you play
The really extremely frustrating situations don't pop up as much anymore.
advanced strategy games for war, don't play this game. Play advanced strategy games for like.
That's still my attitude. If you are
I have a friend who I like won't recommend this game to because of that.
here for the warfare, don't with this game.
Then this is a great game. It's kind of like the assessment overall as I would make it. Feel free to add anything or in the comments or like talk about it if you have.
Which generalist was
kind of ideas
best?
about what's going on or what you
Gray
think.
shirt, white shirt, black shirt,
Like here's
blue
another
shirt.
thing is like these
One shirt, two shirt, red shirt, blue shirt.
So many
Civil War with
tangents.
each other forever.
I can't.
Oh,
out
this
to
was
the
so
video.
awful. You used to be able to have civil wars and then civil wars inside the civil wars.
Oh,
and
yeah.
they would just fragment the countries into a million pieces.
And with the countries with zero military, they'd never get resolved.
Divisions
It was real bad.
They were too poor to make
Another
divisions
example
to win a
of
war.
just
Yeah.
it's buggy and annoying.
And they would never win a
was I
white
doing
peace.
this? Yeah, I was kind of just wrapping it up in terms of the game seems quite good for the economy perspective, but not as good for the other stuff. And so, depending on your interest,
that's still my evaluation.
Might be a very nice game, or it might just be like a frustrating.
If the game was I want the game to add like a very heavy-handed cultural element. I really hope they incorporate bunch of stuff from Morgan wrote, and for it to feel like there's an axis upon which you can achieve in the game that is not merely economic or military. 100% just Victoria 3's military, like, the game would not be fun, right? But it's been fixed in the sense that it's a lot better now. But like, if it was still just, if you had to isolate just like the military aspect alone on the game, like, you would definitely pick other games over this. So it's still definitely like, eco.
Because a lot of stuff just feels unpolished. As far as Paradox games go, it seems like alright on release. A lot of them feel not very good on release, and so.
I don't know what White Shirt's talking about, because I know White Shirt has not been playing like a ton on release. No, actually, no, he just played CK3 on release, not too far before. The thing is like, I don't even know if Victoria 3 should be considered like a flagship game, because I don't know if it gets anywhere near the resources that like EU4, I don't think it does get anything near the resources EU4 or HOE, or even CK3 get. In terms of development resources, which I think is one of the ways that they manage the fact that the like player count is relatively low.
I'm certainly enjoying the game a lot. I've been playing it a ton, as my YouTube suggests, but I would not necessarily recommend it with like the same fervor with which I'm playing it. You know.
Yeah.
Anyways, feel free to like, comment, subscribe.
So, I didn't back.
Now it's time for Gray Shirt to shine. White Shirt is done.
I don't rip on the war as much as I thought I would, and I've like come to appreciate more since this time how bad the war really is. You know, war and Diplo 7 months later have not been fixed. You know, I'm not meaning this to be like a 1,000 hour review. I was thinking of doing that video, but this is just a lot of the problems are still the same as they were when I had 100 hours played 7 months ago.
15 months ago. A lot of improvement, but still, like, the Diplo plays are still leave a lot to be desired.
No, now I don't. Yeah, I'm not.
And increasingly, I guess an issue that's important to me, that's not important to these former generalists, is replayability and specialization, and like runs feeling different from each other.
Not sure there's too much to say on that, other than they're fixing it. But it's like, the Diplo, like, so the warfare is ostensibly going to be fixed in 1.4 and 1.5, which are the next two patches, followed by the DLC.
Much better.
Or, sorry, the warfare is being fixed in 1.4 and 1.5, allegedly. And these are the two upcoming free patches, and then 1.6 is going to be the, you know, patch for Diplo.
This ended up being pushed to 1.7. Since changed. 1.6 is like an intermediary patch.
And supposedly they're going to make it good. But that's like 1.5 years after release, practically.
Yep.
And it's like, it's kind of rough, because I think Paradox has a development cycle that's not like a normal game. But like also like,
I think this is 100%, like whenever anyone rips on, well, other games don't release in like this condition, it's like, dude, like the scale of like what the game is trying to do is like fundamentally different, and the game needs to be developed through like an iterative process, and like, I mean, like, would you rather they release it like 2 years later, way more polished, and the game literally costs 4 or 5 times the price, or something like this, or 3 or 4 times the price?
A lot of these systems, like with the warfare in particular.
Yeah.
Can you guys see my mouse?
Go
here?
on.
No, you can't. Okay. Well, with the warfare in particular, I would rather just it be some auto resolution thing.
Same.
Like, still, what it is now. The warfare is pretty.
It's improved, but I still think I'd rather have it be more abstracted and less of a skill expression thing and less micromanagement heavy.
Bad. And
the warfare's not that bad
it
now,
hasn't
but
improved. And actually, my two biggest complaints.
It's kind of gamey,
like,
though.
It's a little bit disappointing.
Not as
because
gamey, I
7 months
suppose.
ago, I had basically 3 large complaints.
Yep.
The UI
Pop
was
off
terrible. The Diplo's terrible. and the war is terrible. Now, to be fair, the Diplo has improved since this video was made. The AI is not as psychotic when you're in an alliance with them, and there's not weird things that cause you to break
they're kind of psychotic. It's much better than Black Shirt.
It's not as bad. I was really annoyed about that.
That's fair.
They have fixed some stuff. The AI is also better about joining wars and this sort of stuff, so there are some improvements. But the diplomatic play, as a game mechanic, is the most frustrating game mechanic in Victoria 3. And the presence of the diplomatic play and just everything being completely opaque and there being no player agency is why I don't recommend this game to my friends.
Now it's about to be not opaque
only to my enemies. No, I still like this game. I still think you need to evaluate it on a certain axis. But for the mainstream person, I think the diplomatic play will be I think that's where people quit. I made this exact point way earlier. Played and GP joins against them. I think they load and then they declare a different war and then a GP joins against them and then they're like, I'm done. I've had it enough.
There's no transparency. And, it's opaque now, but now there will be.
It's completely opaque and it's not a fun experience. And I complain about this here. And it's still the case now.
Sorry, it's transparent now, not it's opaque now.
Warfare, I complain about here, and my opinion of it has only gotten more harsh as I have encountered more and more stuff that is just very immersion breaking and incredibly frustrating. And the entire point of war was that it was supposed to be in the background. It very much is not the case.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, kind of.
It's
one of the problems is there still needs to be some sort of core fundamental gameplay loop as you enter late game, and if it's going to be building buildings, then you can't take away that part of player agency, and if it's going to be that's
this oversimplified thing, but it's this oversimplified thing that you need.
I think that maybe a cultural archaeology, museum, music, these types of things need to get a little bit more attention for the purpose of gameplay loops.
The micro, which is very much not the point. I do like the idea of the systems, and I think they'll be good eventually. I think they're going for a simplified Hoey, which to me seems fine in principle, especially because I think that they, in the long view, want to have a World War I thing where having fronts is going to be sweet. Good. Having an automated front system is going to be good.
I think that at a certain point, it's also potentially the case that they should scrap the front system that they have. I would rather have the front system that they have if it worked properly, but also teleporting armies, spaghetti fronts. These things are very frustrating to deal with. I don't know.
Assume there's going to be some mega World War DLC or this type of thing with a World War mechanic, something like this, because World War I is in the time frame of this game. But the pacing of them fixing this, to me, looking at this being 7 months later, is not ideal. And I don't like to bag on the game because what I've commented on this before, but I have a sneaking suspicion that
we've commented
the
on
amount of development that goes into flagship games. That it's a flagship game along with CK, and
we're saying that it has less dev team probably.
Europa that it was going to be there on release, and to the extent
this is still generally
to some extent maybe. This is what people should be mad about, that Paradox was making it look like a flagship game. I don't think it's a flagship game. I don't think it has a lot of dev resources. And so I think you should expect slow development. I also think this is fine, because the reason Imperator was such a problem for Paradox was not...
It's this principle where there's this story of a business guy who hires a guy, and the guy makes a $3 million mistake. He gets called into the CEO's office, and the guy's like, oh, am I fired now? And the CEO's like, fired? I just spent $3 million training you. I think they just don't repeat Imperator because they learned from Imperator, right? But I think People on Reddit have finally stopped asking if Victoria 3 is going to get canceled, just like Imperator. Thank God. I think that one of the adjustments they make is like significantly downsizing resources when the player base is like uncertain or small.
Because it wasn't doing well, although it was doing worse than Victoria 3, even though Victoria 3's numbers are still on a negative trajectory, which, I mean, I suppose we could take a look at right now. So they've been on a basically continuous negative trajectory with little bumps, kind of whenever something gets patched. But it's just been
I think they've gone up since 1.7.
Slight negative trajectory. It's generally kind of flat, though, for Victoria 3. But despite this, the main problem, I think, with Imperator is...
Victoria 3 now has some, like, positive bumps, but, like, the overall trajectory now is relatively flat. After some positive bumps. I think it's up slightly from the 7-month
that
period.
They were just sinking a ton of resources into it. And I think the way Paradox does games, they have to develop them over the long haul, and it would have been much better if they were sinking way less resources into Imperator. Imperator was getting fixed slower, and they just didn't have to pull the plug on it, right? And so I think that this might be what they're trying to do with Victoria 3, where if Victoria 3 is not generating the numbers, they're not going to commit the staff. They're just going to slowly develop it and hope that this core of dedicated players floats the small amount of development the game is being given. I think this is the strategy, and I think that it's probably better than the strategy of we need this game to succeed, otherwise we're getting our fingers getting pied. And
fingers getting pied.
I think that's maybe it's fine, but like the pacing is
generalists versus the English language.
I think that if I had talked to my 7th month ago 100-hour review self and told him that the game was going to be in the state it is now, he would have been like, "What? What do you mean?"
I think we've maintained our level of cynicism at this point, where I think if I told 7-month generalist, this will be the state the gaming would be like, alright, okay, I get it. I think if I told 15-month generalist, he'd be like, you know what? Who needs Diplo plays that feel good anyway?
Do you mean that, like, the diplomatic play is still going to be the most frustrating experience ever? What do you mean that warfare is still going to require micro and it's not really a hands-off war? He will also say, what do you mean you can land very, very easily with just 3 boats?
He would have said that. 3 boats in a dream. Can't do that no more.
Nope. Kind of my rejoinder here is, I guess I am disappointed. I have released an in-depth diaries defended the game generally, but I am disappointed at the pace after having watched through this. And thinking and just like realizing
I'm disappointed with the amount of one-on-one conversations I've had with developers that they still haven't buffed the Chainsaws PM, and at this point I think that they are not going to buff it just because they know it bothers me. Yeah,
how long a lot of this stuff has been a problem. They fixed kind of one.
The pace is admittedly slow. I see a lot of people like make subreddits and it's like they just like rip on the game and it's like, okay, I don't think this is a charitable interpretation, but the fundamental like notion that the pace of like improvement has been slow, I think is true.
1 out of 3 of the things that I think they should have probably addressed by now.
Now they're kind of fixed 2 out of 3.
The UI was way, way worse.
Yep, they're still basically a 2 out of 3 for me, with military mostly being fixed and the Diplo play kind of being fixed. Now it's like proper 2 out of 3. Let's call the military 2/3 fixed and the Diplo play 1/3 fixed.
And to be fair, that was the biggest problem. 100%.
It's been fixed.
Not understanding, what the fuck is going on is a problem. And so, it sounds off that. But other than that, a little bit slow. I mean, they are fixing the right things, other than 1.2 in particular. I was really disappointed with 1.2 because they fixed eco stuff, and to be fair with 1.3,
that's like local prices. Some of the stuff introduced in 1.5, it's like local prices. I really like local prices. That breathed like a big amount of like fresh air. Companies are somewhat interested, but local goods suck balls still though. Like I feel like they fundamentally have spent a ton of development time like on what's not the problem, which is like the diplomatic play is the honest to God, like, most frustrating thing and leads to so many frustrating situations. To be fair, they're fixing one of the more frustrating ones in this upcoming patch this week, where you used to be able to revolutions would brick war goals, and they're fixing that. That's like your war goals getting bricked is like really frustrating, but I think you shouldn't even have to put war goals in like at the start anyways. I think what you should do is you should have to put war goals in some sense, but you don't have to enforce. You can enforce anything in the peace deal, but if you enforce something that's not one of your war goals, you gain a lot of extra infamy. I think that would be a good solution, for example.
They fixed internal politics stuff, which was never a complaint of mine. Yep. But now they're fixing warfare and diplomacy, which are, the standouts.
Yeah.
Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, at least for me, because I don't even think this video has very many views.
Shine.
Yeah, just 31 views, so... But, if you like this video, feel free to like, comment, subscribe.
Like 2.6
if you want to comment on
2.6K. This one's 5.8K. 2.6K.
Old Generalist and his opinions on the game. Feel free to do so. And other than that, have a good one.
Yeah. So that's the video. Let's see if we can. That's gray shirt. Find a toothpick generalist. But yeah. So the game's come. I don't want to have a super long outro because this is pretty long. Look at this guy pussying out of actually doing some sort of analysis. Terrible already, but like, it's what an unhandsome guy would do. The game's come a long way. We have seen an improvement in a lot of ways, and a lot of the things that I complained about here are actually getting fixed next week, which is interesting. Military's come along, but like, the timeline seems like I don't know. Well, I'm not involved in game development, so it's like. One thing me talking about how fast games should be developed is like, this is not fundamentally something I know about, you know what I mean? This is not my area of expertise, or like so it's like weird to make a critique because I'm not informed on this like matter. This isn't something that like is like, I don't know. Here, we're gonna just play this muted, but like this isn't something. But like at the same time, like, man, I was expecting the game to like really like the third thing to get polished by now, and it's not getting polished, which is a bit of a disappointment. But like, I don't know, are we gonna make a video 7 months from now and it's like everything's fixed? Is everything gonna be fixed by then?
Nope.
That's the hope, right? The hope is Spheres of Influence kind of puts everything in a nice, neat little package, and the game is great. And I suppose we'll be... To be fair, Sphere of Influence did have like a huge jump forward, and it fixed like 1/3 of the Diplo play issue. Seeing that, probably, my guess would be in April is when we're gonna see Spheres.
Singular.
See if the diplomatic play gets fixed. This is fundamentally the biggest problem now. Warfare has improved dramatically. I wouldn't call warfare fixed. I think that's a little bit too far from white shirt generalists' time, but it's certainly much better than gray shirts generalists' time. And so, in that sense, it's been dramatically improved. I think there's some aspects of war that are like, a little bit problematic. There's still like a ton of bugs with various things, some of which are getting fixed next week, but like really the diplomacy is like, the diplomatic play itself is just painful. It's really painful as a mechanic, and so I hope they fix that. But I hope you enjoyed this. Obviously this is a bit of a meme video. I don't expect many people to get to the... How dare you call this a meme video? At the end of this is real long. And like, this one's even longer, bro. The idea of the video to me is probably much more entertaining than the execution, which is that every 1,000 hours we're just gonna watch this, and it's gonna become this Frankensteinian abomination with like 5 generalists all in a circle. But it is what it is. I can't wait until we have like 7 generalists, and this guy's like talking about what happens when there's 5 generalists. So if you enjoyed, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know which generalist is most handsome, and other than that, look at us, called shots, bang bang. Have a good day. So we'll just mute the video and let it loop through. Let's make our camera bigger, I guess, because we are going to kind of round things up. So repeatedly, we have talked about, okay, there's like 3 chief complaints that we're making here. And those are the UI, military, and the diplomatic play. I think to some extent the diplomatic play has been improved. I called it 1/3 a few minutes ago. Let's call it maybe 20% fixed. And military, let's call 2/3 fixed. So I think that where I'd like to see the game go is military specifically. I think there's going to be a patch in the spring, and I think it's going to introduce boat stuff, and I'm hoping alongside it there's other military improvements such that we say, hey, the military's okay now. We're okay. You're okay. We all feel okay. And then the real big hope is going to be for the diplomatic play. And then kind of the three primary complaints of white shirt generalists will finally be satisfied. The beast will be fed. But I think I'm going to add one kind of new thing that I really hope that the game makes an improvement on. And this is something that, to be fair, is probably not important for the new player whatsoever. This is more of just for me, from my perspective, as someone who now has over 3,000 hours played in this game, which is that I really wish that there was more differentiation between countries to increase replayability. Because as it stands right now, a lot of the countries basically just play the same, and it doesn't really feel and we've kind of already talked through this, but I just want to summarize a little bit. It really doesn't feel like you're having different things going on, and you're going for South Africa every single time and these sorts of things. And I wish that there was more forms of specialization. I would really like to see an underlying cultural system, and I think that I would like to see fundamentally the way PMs work changed, and the way industrialization works changed. I think that industrialization should be an underlying thing that you are trying to advance in your country, and that merely researching a tech and then turning on a PM shouldn't be how you just unlock all this monstrous efficiency, and that instead you should have to in some sense work for it, and look to increase industrialization levels, kind of maybe how you would increase literacy, or something that is somewhat reminiscent of that, and this, by unlocking higher levels of industrialization, it makes it easier to swap on PMs, and then better PMs and better technologies give you a comparative advantage, and that there's something to work towards than and that this industrialization figure is also going to change what economies are maybe good, or your culture, this type of thing, in order to give differentiation and specialization, so that it feels like you have a bigger decision-making process. In particular, trade right now is really, really weak. I'd like to see trade buffed, but it really hurts performance, so that's why they can't do it. If trade got really good, then you could have countries specializing in stuff. And then you could have instances of protectionism, which happened, during this time period, so that in countries that were not yet industrialized put in industrial protections on those industries, so that they could develop those industries themselves. And I think that this would also be really cool. Also, a big war mechanic. I guess we're adding some stuff to the wish list here at the very end. But I think that for the most part, the game is slowly improving. And is making progress. I think it's going in the right direction, kind of overall, and so happy to hear that, or kind of see the development of stuff. Especially, it's very exciting to see how much some stuff has improved. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Obviously, it's a bit of a meme video. Obviously, I'm the most handsome journalist. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Do the YouTube algorithm thing. And other than that. Have a good one. Incidentally, actually, it's a Thursday, so have a happy Thursday as well.